Hello and welcome back to Book Chat. I'm Mandy Greaves and today I'm chatting with Gary Christensen, the Director of Catholic Care here in the Diocese. Welcome, Gary, and thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Good. Okay, now before we start chatting about the book, Gary, could you just explain to everyone what you do here at the Diocese, your role and the path that's led you to this position, please?
Sure. As you said, I'm the Director of Catholic Care Social Services for the Diocese of Maitland-Newcastle. So we're the official social services arm for the Diocese, and we provide support to vulnerable people across all areas of the Diocese for people going through all sorts of vulnerabilities from birth to death, really.
Yes, and this is a special month for you in the Diocese, is that right? If my reading of the intranet's correct?
It is. This month we're running our August appeal. So we provide a number of programs that don't receive any government funding. So that's our refugee hub and all of our community kitchens. Last year we served over 45,000 meals to vulnerable people. And we need money really to make sure that continues to happen. So this is our August appeal month and we're really trying to raise as much money as we can so we can continue those vital services.
Yeah, well, good luck with that, and hopefully this promotes it a little bit for you.
Yeah, thanks.
So let's get into the book. Could you tell everyone the book that you've chosen and just a little bit about it?
Sure. I've chosen the book Against All Odds, and it's the book of the Thai cave rescue, where 12 young people and their coach got stuck in a cave, and it's the story of, I guess, the two Australians who were critical in making sure those boys got rescued.
Yeah, so the anaesthetist Richard Harris and the veterinarian Craig Challen, they were chosen because of their unique skill set, both being medical people and really experienced world-class cave divers. However, from what I can gather, even though they've got those skills, this took them somewhere that they'd never ever been before, and they were under intense media scrutiny through the whole ordeal, and they had to adapt all the time to changing circumstances. Like the weather was just atrocious. That was probably their biggest problem, the weather. And they had to build trust with these people who they'd never met before, and many of them like young boys. So how has reading Against All Odds inspired you?
Look, I think it's been an incredibly inspirational read. When I first started reading, I didn't know a whole lot about cave diving or the intricacies of cave diving. Having grown up in Caves Beach, my exposure to caves is the giant ones that are at that beach, and you don't really get stuck in those. So reading through it and just reading the fact that, as you said, they had to build trust with so many people. They had to build their trust within themselves and gain their own confidence. And they were going in to do something that no one in the world has ever done. And they were, dealing with the military and police, and particularly the elite Thai Navy SEALs who had been diving in and out of those caves for forever and couldn't manage to pull it off. So for me, it was an incredibly inspirational read.
Yeah, so I remember it happening. It seems in a way a long time ago, but it was only in June of 2018. And it really had the world glued to their TVs for the whole 17 days. Given that it's a few years later now, how has reading the book impacted on you?
Look, when I read the book, it was one of those books that makes you laugh, cry, be stressed out and inspired. And I think the impact really has been great for me. It's such a book of collaboration and teamwork and building trust and building resilience and having resilience. But I think one of the things that struck me most is that just before they left for Australia, Richard had been given his visa and his diplomatic clearance, but Craig hadn't. And Richard actually said he'd refused to go without Craig and pushed the Australian government into a corner to make sure they approved Craig. And the reason he said that is because Craig is his sounding board. Not only is he also an excellent diver and a veterinarian, as you said, but he was a sounding board, and he wanted to make sure he had someone he could trust. And I think that just demonstrates that, the uniqueness of teamwork and the reason that you want to have good people in your corner.
Oh, exactly. So like you said, the rescue was, and I think still remains for all of us, an example, first of all, of human skill, human ingenuity, selflessness, and I think maybe our endless capacity for hope that we don't give up. So could you share a quote from the book that explains and explain why this quote stands out for you, please?
Sure. There's so many good quotes in the book, and I guess most people would probably expect me to pick one or two from the boys who were rescued when they wrote the notes to their parents. And I thought about doing that, but then I had a bit of a reread in preparation for this, and I'm just going to read this a quote out to you because it just struck me as such a powerful thing. So on the third day, they've done 2 days of rescuing. The third day, they're at breakfast. Both Craig and Richard are at breakfast, and they're prepping for their third day of rescuing. And they're eating their breakfast. And Craig says to Richard, imagine if we killed one of them today. If we made a mistake and we killed one of them today. And they then talk about it. And Richard says, yeah, it'd actually be worse than killing someone on the first day because there's such high expectation now. We've managed 2 days of rescuing and the expectations are so high. And they said, everyone would be asking how did you screw up that badly and the failure to be totally their fault. And he said, Craig then says, yeah, how quickly things have changed. All of a sudden, Noah wants to believe this is hard. Yeah. And, it took so much planning and there was so much division about whether this is a good idea or a bad idea, and anaesthetising children and swimming them through a 4-kilometre cave system. And these guys got so much pressure on them, and that's what they're thinking about at breakfast, the public opinion or the government's opinion of what would happen if they did lose one of these young fellows.
Yeah. And it just does show you that whole pressure that the media puts people under that, 50, 60 years ago, that wouldn't exist, but now it's almost the main pressure. I mean, you look at now, like at the Premier with the COVID outbreak, that's probably the biggest pressure she's under every day to deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And even people in our own diocese who make decisions every day and are second guessed, whether it be on social media or in the media, and the pressure of those decisions. Leadership is about making decisions and taking calculated risks, and I guess this book demonstrates that to a T.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I was saying to you before the interview that I had the good fortune to attend a presentation that Richard Harris, the anaesthetist, gave, and like you in reading the book, I hadn't considered the intricacies of that whole operation and to rescue that many people. And I think each boy, it took them 3 hours to get one boy through the cave system, and they had to re-anaesthetize them halfway through. So it was just so incredibly difficult. And when I listened to Richard talk, like his passion and his knowledge and the commitment were really inspirational. But I think it was his humility that really got to me. And I still think he can't believe that they pulled it off, that it all happened and worked. So if you got the chance to ask the authors one question, what would it be, and why would you want that question answered?
I think the question I'd ask would be around how do they manage it's not second guessing themselves after they've made the decision. It's an incredibly risky move to anaesthetize children and take them, underwater through a cave system, and making that decision. I think personally, I'd be having doubts every minute of the day. Yeah. So my question would be, how do they manage that doubt or that self-doubt? And, what strategies do they use to push through and hold their decision firm?
Okay, yeah. And okay, so sometimes I must admit, I think about the famous people that I would like to meet. So if you got to ask one person from the book to come to your house for dinner or a barbecue, you got to meet them and talk to them, who would that person be and why?
Andy, I'm going to cheat on this question. I'm going to say I would have to ask both of them. I think they demonstrate that they operate as a team. So I'd want to ask both Richard and Craig. And I guess the reason I'd want to do that is because, as you said at the beginning, they had to improvise and adapt and overcome in so many different levels. And the book, albeit a brilliant book, just isn't big enough to discuss how many decisions that they had to improvise, adapt, or overcome on. So we're wanting to really dig into that and find out how they did it and what they, how they came to make those decisions.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think we might wrap it up now, Gary. So final question, if you had to rate this book on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being that it's a great book and you think everybody should read it, it's got something in there for everyone, how would you rate Against All Odds?
I would rate it a 5.
Okay. And why? Why?
Because I think you've just hit the nail on the head. It's got something for everybody. It's a wonderful story of humanity. It's a wonderful story of collaboration, teamwork, humility. And I think that every reader would get something out of it and learn something from it.
Okay, great. So thank you so much, Gary. I've really enjoyed talking to you today, and I'm sure everyone watching has been re-inspired in these difficult times that we're going through in this story of determination, cunning, and the fact that you can triumph against all odds.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
All right. Thanks, Gary. Bye.
Bye.